I'm Randy Pittman, and I'm with the Walker County, Georgia Media Group, along with the citizens of Walker County. We're sitting here today with Chairman Whitfield, who's seeking re-election. This is not an endorsement for Mr. Whitfield. So we got that out of the way. Tell us a little something about yourself, Shannon.
Well, I appreciate you doing these interviews for all the candidates and taking the time out of your schedule. So thank you for allowing me to be here. But my name's Shannon Whitfield. I've been the chairman for the Walker County Board of Commissioners for a little over the last 3+ years. And then prior to that, I was the sole commissioner for 4 years for Walker County. Married to Dana Whitfield. We've been married for a little over 30 years. We have 2 grown daughters who are both out of college and living their dreams. And then we have a son who's 12 years old. Actually, he's got a birthday this week. So he's going to be 13 right around the corner. So I better get that in there. But just grown up in Walker County my entire life. I graduated Gordon Lee High School. Went there all 12 years and been in the community and business and civic leadership and church involvement in things my entire life. So it's just great to serve in this capacity here in Walker County.
Well, I guess the first thing, like you said, you were sole commissioner. You was the first chairman of the board. Why seek a third term?
Well, we've got some things in motion that we want to get completed. We've got several grants, from fiber optic grant that we've gotten to grants for our recreational, our civic center playground, the recreational splash pad, walking track, pavilion up in Rossville. So we've got those things we want to get done. Also, we've got splosh projects that, I put the splosh projects together in 2020 before the actual board, took office in conjunction and collaboration with the city leaders, and the voters voted that in 2020. So I want to see these splosh projects completed. And I'd also like to be in county government when we become debt-free and be able to operate a county for one term without any debt. And so that's going to be a huge accomplishment this year that we'll be able to do, is to get our county completely debt-free. And we'll be one of, my understanding, less than 10 counties in the entire state of 159 counties that has no debt. Wow. And so I think I got one more term in me. I don't know if I'll go any further than this upcoming term, but I think that we've got enough things on the agenda, enough things on the pipeline. Also with the Water and Sewer Authority, we've got a large-scale water treatment plant under construction. We've got a sewer project under construction. Got some water expansion in some areas that don't currently have public water. So we've got a lot of things in the hopper that I think it would be good for me to stay on another term and see these things through.
And, these infrastructure jobs, they're important, especially with sewer. We've lived in our home Gina's lived there all her life. And I asked the neighbors, when did they come and put the sewer lines in? We don't know. We moved here in the late 60s, and they didn't know. So that tells you that it was ran probably back in the 50s with clay pipe and stuff. So it's needed. Shannon, what do you think is the most pressing issue right now in county government?
Probably the most pressing issue is managing growth. I think going forward is going to be the most pressing issue, because we have a lot of attention in our community right now of people wanting to come to Walker County, people coming from all over the country that have discovered Walker County. And so I think going forward, managing that growth, following our comprehensive plan to determine where's the best places suited for growth, where do we need that sewer infrastructure, where do we need to increase our capacity with water, with roads and these type of things, but also at the same time, where's that line and how do we draw those lines and keep them in place for the areas that we want to keep the natural beauty of Walker County, the farmland, the agricultural, the timber, the forestry parts of our community. And so, we have a comprehensive plan in place, but it can be revised, modified at any time. But it has to be modified and updated every 5 years. And so it's an ongoing conversation. So I think that's probably one of the most pressing issues that we're going to have going forward over the next 10 to 20 years.
And that comprehensive plan, I've got a copy of it. It's in depth. There's a lot to there. So talking about T-Splosh, how much money will it generate a year? I know I'm saying maybe, is it 50 miles of road this year?
Yes. So the Board of Commissioners at the last meeting that we just had approved the contract with Tally Construction where we're paving 51.18 miles this year. And so Tally was the low bid. We put that out on the state procurement website. Had 4 different companies bid on that, which was a great response. Tally Construction by far was the lowest bid, and fortunately they're their hometown guys up here in Rossville on McFarland Avenue. And over the last 6 years, when we've put paving out for bid, they've also by far been the low bid, and so they've done a great job for us. But T-Splosh, if I remember correctly, I think we're estimating is somewhere around about $60 million to be brought in over that timeline,
over the cycle,
over the entire cycle. And so our goal is we have approximately about 500 miles of road left to be paved in Walker County. We've got a plan in place to be able to do about 50 miles per year or more. So this year we're doing 51 miles the way it worked out. Yeah. But we've got to continue to do 50 miles plus per year to reach that goal of getting every road in Walker County paved in 10 years. Got about 500 miles left. So if we can do 50 miles a year in 10 years, we can have every road paved. And that includes every subdivision, every side road, every road right now that's gravel, every, single lane road, everything out there, every road paved, not just the main roads, but every road paved. And just like this year, prime example, Mountain View subdivision up there off Mission Ridge Road.
We come through her.
It's been 40 plus years. The roads in there are getting pretty rough shape. That's a subdivision. So this year, that subdivision got approved. So the entire subdivision is being paved this year. It's already in that list of 51 miles of road. And so T-Splosh is going to be a great benefit for Walker County.
Yeah, we voted for it. What's the budget each year, average, and how do you divide it up between your departments? The sheriff's department, the courthouse, road crew. I know there's several different agencies that you pay out of our tax dollars.
Yeah, all the functions of Walker County government comes through the commissioner's office for the budget process, and that's the way it's set up across the whole state. That's not something as a board we did or I did as a sole commission. That's the way it's set up in state government in Georgia. So all of the elected officials, the constitutional officers, all will submit budget requests. And then what I do, I spend hundreds of man hours personally myself, and have since I've been in office, to get a handle on the budget, get a handle on the spending. I sit down and go through this budget line by line because budgets grow every year because we have increased cost in our operation. You have increased wages, insurance, utilities, just like we all do at home. I mean, costs go up every single year. So I think just in the general fund alone, there's like 68 different budget departments alone. Plus we have the special revenue budget that includes special revenues to be things like the 911 center, the fire department, the landfill, Mountain Cove Farms. Those are special revenues and grant funds. So when you add everything together, the budget that was approved for FY24 was over $74 million. And so fortunately, only $14 million of that comes from property taxes. And I think that's something that people need to hear more about, is how we've been able over the last 7 years to keep property taxes as flat as possible, targeting around that $14 million mark. So I know nobody likes property taxes. I don't like property taxes. No. But it is something that we have to have some of. We have to have a portion of our revenue from property taxes. But out of our $74 million budget, only a little over $14 million comes from property taxes.
Wow. Let's talk. Last week in the Messenger, I seen a public notice for bids to repair the exterior of the courthouse and make it ADA compliant. Tell us a little bit about that. I know there's a lot of people in the county that's looking forward to work being done on the courthouse.
Yeah, so that's something that's been in development or in planning since 2020, because that was listed as one of the key items on our SPLOSH referendum. So over the last year and a half, Commissioner Mark Askew and Commissioner Brian Hart have been collaborating and working on that scope of work. And so they've put together a very comprehensive request for proposal and outline in detail to start on the exterior.
Mhm.
And part of that is back several years ago, we had an ADA ramp for entry into the south end of the courthouse, because there's an ADA ramp there now, but it's not what it needs to be.
Yeah.
It needs to be overhauled and restarted. So we
I
had an
agree.
engineering firm draw up the plans of that. So that includes this, but this first phase on making restoration to the courthouse is primarily focused on the exterior. A lot of terracotta on that courthouse. A lot of the joints of the terracotta have just deteriorated just with the heat and time and pressure and age. And so there's going to be a lot of just grinding and grunt work that, a company's going to have to do to take and restore a lot of these masonry type joints as well. Cleaning and working on the brick. Years ago when they did a renovation, they did some painting of the brick. That's gotten discolored, and
It's pink.
yeah, it's kind of a pink color now, the way over time, the age and the heat and all. And so this is to try to restore the exterior look. So that was placed on the state's procurement website, and probably a week ago, we have a bid opening of that coming up in, I think, mid-May. It's on my calendar. I don't remember the exact date. And then we will review any proposals that come in, make sure they meet all the qualifications, and then that will be presented in one of our public meetings for our Board of Commissioners to make the final decision on who will be awarded that bid to do the outside overhaul of the courthouse. And the scope of work shows, I think, starting like as early as June and to be completed by the end of December. So that gives a contractor the remaining of this calendar year to get that scope of work done. So again, that was one of our 2020 SPLOSH projects that everyone voted on. We've had the funding in place. It's just the heavy lift has been getting the scope of work put together.
And I know it's there's a lot there with it being registered on the National Registry of Historic Places. So you can't just go in there and paint the courthouse. There's a procedure to follow from the federal government. When the stairs were closed down, they had just previously been an accident at the courthouse where they tore out some of the fence and some of the block and stuff. I can't remember, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. The guy that hit the courthouse was DUI. He was intoxicated. So did the county recoup any of our money from his insurance? Did the county have to sue him?
Didn't have to sue him. There was a chase by the Lafayette Police Department, and it was the guy lost control of his vehicle, hit some of that decorative metal fencing and into the brick and all, and it damaged part of the window. So yeah, there was some funds that were recovered from the insurance, and we still have those funds. We replaced a couple of the windows because they were cracked and broken, and we was able to have those windows refabricated. Because those windows have got the chicken wire look to them. I don't know exactly what that's called,
I forget, but they don't make it no more.
Right, yeah. So it's a real specialty thing that we had to find somebody. It took months and months and months because those had to be custom made. But the overall courthouse from head to toe, so to speak, needs a refresh, and that's what this RFP is about. And then once we get the outside refreshed and get everything water sealed tight, then they'll do a scope of work, and we'll do an RFP for the interior for updates and modifications to the interior.
And I understood that, when the courthouse was built, they wasn't running water in the courthouse. So adding running water and stuff, central heat and air has helped cause some of this damage from the roof, where the roof had leaked. Yeah. And y'all had it repaired. I can't remember. Seemed like I remember it being repaired. Been several years ago.
Well, the courthouse is over 100 years old, and it's ongoing maintenance. There, like you say, when the thing was first built, there wasn't central heating and air, so there's a large chiller system in there. Also, we've continued to make improvements to the fire notification system and making sure the sensors are put into the heating and air system. So if the building was to fill up with smoke, into the duct system, the smoke alarms would go off. Also, about 2.5 years ago, one thing that was a big lift on that building because the walls are so thick and the way the
Yeah.
storage are structured, running fiber optic into that building. We wanted to get every office in that building on fiber optic, where they've got a gig capacity, put in Wi-Fi that's available to the staff members, and also have a separate guest Wi-Fi. So we worked with Ringo Telephone Company. They did a phenomenal job, but that was a heavy, heavy lift. They worked on that for weeks. And it's just because of the solid construction of that building. And we've had different people of great knowledge of historic buildings have looked at that building from top to bottom, inside and out, from the basement all the way up into the rafters. And they have all had the same message, that how solid that building is, how well built it is, how good structurally it is. And really the problems that we have are more cosmetic. Yeah. And just updating and freshening up, and like you say, the discolor to the brick, and some things where when the last renovation was done, that was when Buddy Chapman was in office. So that's been probably going on 30 years ago now, since that was done. And so, it's time for a refresh.
Yeah. And, courthouse is just one of the buildings we have in the county. How many buildings do we have? And what kind of grade would you give the overall structures for the buildings?
We have 82 building structures that we are responsible for in Walker County. And, that blows people's mind when they hear that number. But there's some buildings that people don't think about the county owning. One example, the State Patrol Barracks there in Lafayette. That's a county-owned building. The State Patrol pays $1 per year lease. Yeah. That's what they do across the state. And so, but with their revenue from their tickets that they collect goes into the county government. So any tickets that they write is kind of that offset. One thing that I've looked at over the last several months is how many of our buildings that we are functioning in were not built for what they're being used for today. There's very few buildings, just like our commissioner's office. That used to be a health department. The Annex 2 courthouse across the street from us used to be a funeral home. That's what it was built for. The Annex 3 courthouse, where we have our commission meetings, that was a hospital doctor's office. So we have, like our Walker County Civic Center, 911 Center, Ag Center, some buildings like that were actually built and are being used for what they were intended to be used for. But even you take the courthouse, the 100-plus-year-old courthouse, government has changed so much in 100 years. When that courthouse was built, it housed the commissioner, the sheriff, all the judges, the clerk of the court, and even the tax commissioner.
Yeah.
So we have also outgrown that building. So I think once we, this year, get our county debt free and we start looking next year into preparing and talking about another splosh cycle, we need to start having that conversation about our main infrastructure buildings, what we need to do, and what buildings may need to be constructed for modern times. Yeah. And I think, a courthouse is probably pretty high on top of that list for most people, because even with the upgrades and modifications and restoration that we're doing at that courthouse, it still doesn't fit modern times. We need to do these restorations for preservation and to always keep that as a landmark and a historic treasure. But when you look at what other communities have done with modern day courthouses, we need to get there. And so I think that's future conversation for splosh referendums for that big infrastructure. And those conversations will be much easier when our county's out of debt as well.
Yeah, and I've said it before. I probably even spoke to you about it. Preserve the courthouse and let's build something up to date.
That's right.
Now, of course, people don't want to spend that kind of money, but we're really at a point. It's a necessity to do that. Well, Shannon, we're getting tight on time. Tell the voters why they should vote for Shannon Whitfield.
I appreciate you entrusting me over the last 7+ years of representing you in the county commissioner's office. When I took office, we didn't even have enough money to make the first month's payroll. I had to go and do a tax anticipation note and borrow $8 million the first year I was in office. The second year I was in office, we had to borrow just $1 million. Now we're not borrowing any money at all. We've gone from over $80 million worth of debt to this year we're going to be debt free. So I think I've got a proven track record of being responsible with the finances of the county. We have made a lot of progress. There's still a lot of work to be done, just some of the things we've talked about here tonight, where there's still improvements in infrastructure with our buildings, our utilities, our roads. we've been behind the curve for several decades, and it's going to take another decade to get over that hump. But I appreciate your support in the past, appreciate and cherish your prayers, and I hope you consider me again to continue as the chairman of the Board of Commissioners in this election.
Well, Shannon, thank you for
so
allowing me
much.
to talk with you shortly. You heard it from Shannon Whitfield. Get out and vote. Early voting starts the 29th of April at the courthouse in Lafayette. Get out and vote.